Hey folks, this video is about pine plantations and how we can hunt them more effectively. And this video is also brought to you by my very generous patrons. I can't thank you guys enough. Good times are natural. Here's a section of map, and this is part of the maps that are provided to us by the DPI and that we have for legal purposes. See, there's exclusion zones here and areas that you can hunt here, and this is of a section of pine forest. Now, by just looking at the map, we can actually tell straight away that it's pine forest without double checking, and one of the ways that we can is there's a huge excess of fire trails along here. You see there's these broken line ones, which mean that they're not necessarily strong vehicle tracks or four-wheel drive only. Now, the reason there's so many of them is because harvesting trucks need to get in amongst the pines to cut them down when it's time. What you'll also notice is wherever there's little creeks here, you've often got a fire trail on either side of them. Now, creek areas in state forests are predominantly either a little patch of grass that's just dividing to lots of pines. It could also be pretty choked up with blackberry. Now, that's nothing to be worried about because, well, it might make it challenging to move through and hunt and stalk properly, but it does attract a lot of animals sometimes. A lot of deer are pretty interested in getting onto them. More to the point, they can also be eucalypt forests, native bush, little strips of that. And wherever there's water, that's a pretty good place to hunt. I mean, it naturally attracts animals, especially in dry weather. But how do we know for sure? Well, that's when we would turn ourselves to something like Google Maps, and I'll get one up for you right now. Find the area that I'm after, that we've just been looking at on the DPI map, and I'll click satellite. And there we go. There's a satellite representation of where I'm planning to head. And first things first, I can see is that this pine plantation is surrounding, well, a bit of private property, and the fact that it is pasture and clear. There's a few dams here which are marked, but more to the point, up these little creek areas, we're seeing plenty of clearings. Now, obviously, when you're trying to devise a plan, you're going to think just in terms of basic deer behaviour. They're going to live in the forest. They're probably going to want to feed in here at some stage. That might be at night time. We can't hunt at night. Therefore, what you're trying to work out is where their game trails might bring them from. Patch of pine up here, they might take their way down through the clearings and feed along them until they get to their main feed area. Same thing in the mornings is, some of these deer, if they're a bit spooked, they might want to leave here at about 4, 5 a.m., like before it's actually light. But then just because they're heading to their bedding areas up here doesn't mean they're necessarily going to just trot all the way there in one go. They're probably going to want to feed their way up through some of these little bits of clearing. They might want to hug pretty close to where there is some pine, but they'll eat where there's pasture, obviously, and get to wherever their bedding area might be. So this is you using a map to devise a plan and at least get some sense of, what you're going to do. You can always change a plan, but at least go there with a plan. Now, one little word of warning is that these satellite maps, although they're very useful here, they're showing us where pine is, where pasture is, and that's not going to be wrong. But what could be wrong is some of these pine plantations could have been recently harvested since the satellite picture was made. So that's just something to be aware of. Not that it's no longer a pine plantation anymore, but it might not be trees, it might be a clear-felled area. You'll probably only know unless you call someone who's been there recently or when you go there to see it yourself. So here's another patch. I know it's an exclusion zone, but we're just talking for talking's sake. What have we got here? This is a fringe. It's all the white. Private property, we can't go there. Must be a pasture, maybe not. First thing I'm looking at is all of these fire trails here. Well, that looks just like a pine plantation like I spoke about before. So this is why it's a really good idea to cross-reference it with Google Maps, which we'll do in just a moment. Obviously, I'm looking at where I can find a bit of fringe, so I can maybe find a bit of sign along one of these tracks and work out where the animals are heading in. And let me just be clear, I'm talking about trends here. Everything that we talk about when it comes to animal behavior is just trends or something that's typical. That doesn't mean that they won't behave in a non-typical manner. Doesn't mean they don't keep you guessing. But we start with these basic techniques so that it can just give us a bit more of a broader picture. If I was going to look along this edge, though, and try and find a fringe spot where they're coming into the forest, I might have to treat it differently because I don't think this is pasture. Let's cross-check that now. Same area in Google Maps, clicking satellite. Oh, bit of a surprise. Yes, there is some pasture around in some places, but the private properties bordering the forest there are predominantly eucalypt forest. Now you can see that compared to pine, eucalypt, different shades, pretty easy to see. You can also see where all these clearings are in this section. Now this is obviously taken, this picture is taken at a pretty green time of year where they've obviously had some rain. We've seen these pines are brown here because they've been knocked down. I'd say that there'd be some pine regrowth or they've been replanted at some stage since this satellite photo is taken. The main thing I notice is along these areas where there is a creek, look how nice and green it is. That's great for a couple of reasons. First of all, obviously, the hunter's got his shooting lanes. There's actually, we can see a bit of distance there. We can use our binos at the right time of day and see the animals as they're popping around, as they're nomming on some fresh grass. More to the point, the animals want to be there because there's fresh grass. Why is there fresh grass? Because there's a water source nearby. It's not just about having a drink. I mean, plant life needs water too. And deer, goats, pigs need plant life. Yeah, it might be choked up with blackberries. That's plant life. Whether it be just pasture, well then they're almost certainly going to be there at some stage. Now, word of warning. Let's have a think about this. You're hunting through some pines. Oh, there's some more pines here. You want to walk down here, even though it's private property? That is no less poaching than any other poaching offence. You will be hunting illegally. That won't be an excuse that the DPI accepts. It won't be an excuse that the owner of these pines accepts. And those people will definitely be on the lookout for illegal hunting. Ignorance is not an excuse. It'll never be accepted as an excuse. That's why we have GPS mapping system as well as the paper maps. And that'll prove and show to us that that is private property and not state forest. So the main reason I was also pointing out these pines here is it doesn't mean that, oh, because there's no pasture here, you won't hunt there. Well, you won't hunt here, you'll hunt there. You'll just approach the whole situation pretty differently. That's not to say that there is or isn't game here. I think there probably is game in a section like this, but you'll probably approach it differently than you would with a section that's pasture coming straight into bushland.
Alright, here's an example of some much more mature pine. Now as you can see, that's a lot more huntable. And yet, the deer and the critters want to be there just as much as lower pine, but at least we can get onto them. It allows for great stalking. Often the moisture content in those pine forests is a lot higher than anywhere else. It doesn't dry out as fast. Pine needles are nice and soft to walk on. Different style of hunting. But as you can see, you know, if you get on a good patch for this stuff, work it. Work it hard because they're going to cut it down. That's what these, that's what radiators for. It's for building houses. All right. Well, I thought a really good way of demonstrating some of the ideas that I've got about how to hunt a forest is to just do it from scratch and come to an area that I've never hunted before, and just apply the principle and see what happens. So this is my first time here. What do? I'm not going to step into the bush and just start going Rambo and start sniping away. It's not going to happen. I have no idea what's going on here. The reason I've chosen this area is because on the booking system, you can go into harvest return information, and there have been fallow deer and pigs here. So I think, well, cool, we know they're in the area. Where exactly they are in the forest, I don't know. So I'm going to scout. I'm going to scout hard. I'm going to put in some good miles today. You might be able to see it. I've got native on this section and pine here. This is not a massive section of native. It's just a strip of native along a creek. They're very productive areas in my experience. Very fucking productive areas. So long and the short of it is, today's about covering miles. And even if I go along this stretch, which is about 2 kilometers of creek, and I start finding sign, cool, I'm still going to go to other areas and suss them out too. I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket. I want to learn everything about the area. And then once I've got those spots down, I'm marking them on maps, you know, I'm developing patterns. You can see it on the topographic map, and then there's other areas which I haven't been to, which I think, well, if that's a saddle, maybe they go over there, you know, and it's just, the picture starts coming together. You don't know until you start putting miles in. Anyway, good times, let's see how we go. "15 minutes in, and I'm already onto a fallow deer scrape. I'm seeing game trails coming in this way, that way, and across the creek. So all of a sudden, I found a little honey hole. And see, this helps me so much more. Rather than just being straight into the game and hoping I get lucky, I'm building a map. I know exactly where I'd come to next time, and I know exactly how quiet I'd be on my approach. I wouldn't come the way that I came the other way. Because I could get down through those pine plantations up there nice and softly and quietly. Hopefully the air would be coming in my face, that kind of stuff. This is great, big tick. It's the end of the game trail across the creek. There it is on the other side. So obvious. Going straight up to the hill to the next pines. As you can see, like, the height of these pines here, like it's unhuntable for us. You're getting to this level where the trees are starting to get about 2-3 meters high. It's the perfect home for a fallow deer. That's where they want to be, and pigs too. And they do that because they're safe in there. They feel fine in there. They can hear anything that's coming their way, and nothing can really come in and get them unless it's another natural predator. Then you get a small little clearing like this, and as soon as you've found it, there's just sign everywhere. There's pig sign all through here, and a few little fallow tracks working up into there too. So all of a sudden, clicked into my mind, and because I'm on the fringe of where it gets to a nice little feed area, this is the immediate travel spot. I've just marked it out in my mind, and I can already see where it's going to. I can already think in my mind on the other side of this pine plantation where it might be exiting. That's the way I'm thinking. Well, this is what I call productive. I haven't seen any animals. I'm not even really looking for animals, but I've been working hard at finding sign. Found a lot of it. Found plenty of pig sign and plenty of fallow deer sign. Although the fallow sign, to be perfectly honest, is a bit old, and I haven't found any fresh scat or anything like that. So, but if there's tracks on the trails and the roads and the mud and stuff, even if that is within the last few weeks, they're around. Point is, I started this at 11:30. Now it's 12:30. I'm going to move to another spot. I was like, how many people, spend this part of the day chilling out back at camp? There's nothing wrong with chilling out. The point is, I can be productively learning and actively working towards success at any time of the day. On the border, found a game trail. Ah, you lucky pricks. Oh, just got away from me. Far out. Any of them? That's a bit more fucking like it, eh? Very fresh. You notice that all big sign, it's tossed up by the nose, so these back bits, they fall back and forth. Well, the garden's looking pretty gloomy, but I've got some potatoes just dying off here, and some bloody old carrots that resprouted just here, so I'm going to see what I can get out of here and chuck some venison and some garlic in with that. Maybe a stock cube and some salt. That makes for a beautiful camp stew, I reckon.
Gone for a few days.
Bloody beautiful. So, look, the pine forests are not my favourite place to hunt, but they are very productive when it comes to pig hunting, fallow deer hunting, and shitload of foxes too, always. But yeah, so I'm going to try and just go about applying some of the very basic techniques which I tend to share to new hunters, and just put myself through those same ones, and just see what kind of success I have over the next couple of days. This afternoon's about scouting, tomorrow's about shooting. What I'm going to do is get this camp oven going, and just 50 metres over there I'll be able to just have a sit, just have a look at what's going on for the last hour of daylight now. I've got chopped up spuds, carrot from the garden this morning, and I've got an onion in there with it as well. Now I also brought a whole bunch of herbs and salt mixed together and a few stock cubes, which I'll just chuck in for a bit of extra flavour. And of course, I've got some samba from Victoria the other day, so that's still frozen, which is annoying, but if I just get that on top and get it on the fire, then she'll be right, as they say. Bloody ripper. Now that's a butte feed. A good place to be. Last night was very, very cold. I struggled to get there, to sleep I mean, but I'm just trying to soak up some sun now. It's like 8 o'clock, so it's not exactly an early start, but there's a very consistent westerly. And I want to check out some fringe areas because I don't think they're feeding in the forest. There's any patches of grass that I see aren't grass patches, it's tussock patches, and I don't eat that very much. So I'm going to pick an area of fringe and I'm going to move in a westerly direction with the westerly wind in my face. I'm not going to be right on the fringe, I'm not like walking on the fence. I'm going to be walking about 50 to 100 metres up into the pines, if it's hills, and just contour along. And let's see if anything happens. Well, I found a dam, and no surprise, just a heap of deer tracks and pig tracks, both deer and pig. Like, see this one here, see how the trot is shorter and split apart, that's a pig. More up there, that's deer and some roe. But you know the deer have been here because of that. So a few months ago they were going bananas for it, that's good. Still right. I've been all over the joint, and I found a few areas which were like the gap between pine and native forest, which are very productive places to hunt, and I found a lot of sign from the rut. Well, I've made it to the fringe. I gave it a good hour moving up and over that hill, stalk mode, if you will. But it was good because there was deer shit there, all the stuff. Obviously, probably when the grass up there is a bit sweeter. But yeah, so I'm going to have a good long walk along the fringe now, and I'll be pretty efficient about it. Just smash straight through, and anything that I see in terms of a game trail linking up from the pines to the fringe, then I'll take interest, but otherwise, yeah, heading home. Oh, she scampered off. I'll have to find out if I killed her. This is bloody annoying. I've done myself a fucking drama. It's like, I've shot it over there and it's scary, but I'm not quite sure of the shot. And I've got all these bloody blackberries and I'm trying to find a way. It's a bloody... Righto, fallow deer hunting, how you going? Oh, I saw this. Hey look, I want to just be transparent and admit to fucking up. I've worked out what's happened here because I'm trying to think, well, because I gave it 2 shots and the first shot did not feel great. The second shot was on. The first shot got it in the leg, so that can't have been nice for the animal at all, but offhand shot, you could say it's stupid, but there was nothing else I could have used. Well, then maybe I should have just left the deer. But the point is, I'm a deer hunter and I've got a deer. That's my little self-pity talk over. Thank you, beautiful fallow deer. Alright. Well, see, I talked about my learnings before about just shooting when it's right and not just shooting because it's there, but that's alright, I've got what I need. Let's talk more about why I made this video in the first place, and that's pine hunting. When you're approaching an area like a fine pine forest, is like, no matter where you find them in New South Wales or New Zealand or Victoria or Tassie, like, a lot of them have a lot of the same features that you can rely upon. Yeah, it's a bit formulaic, but does it get success? Yes, it does. You are looking for clearings. Yes, you're looking for areas like a dam, like I've pointed out before, that all the sign that I've seen during the day has been around dams, and dams which have a lot of blackberry around them. And the point is that the deer isn't thinking, I need to go to a dam where there's blackberry. You know, it's developed a pattern, and areas like dams with a lot of blackberry around them have drawn these deer into a pattern for their entire lives, and more to the point, the existence of the herds in these forests. They've gotten into their rhythm. These rhythms can be disturbed by hunting pressure. These rhythms can change due to the seasons and stuff like that. But there's certain draw cards to them in these pine deserts where there isn't a lot of feed. If you have a water source and a pretty juicy plant thing around it, even if the deer isn't going to find any food there, because I know I couldn't really see what it was eating there because there's nothing to eat, but it's going to go there anyway to check. It's probably going on this massive loop all through the night to just try and find any meager pickings it can. Might end up finding its way into a private property eventually. I mean, they cover a lot of distance at night time. If they're on good feed, they won't move much. I think eventually this deer would have probably ended up where I was heading for my evening last, 10-20 minute hunt that I was going to have just near my car, because it's heading right that way. And when I think about it, all these game trails lead up in that direction. I don't know, persist. That's my point. I didn't think I was going to see her right there. I thought I was maybe going to see something further down, but now that I look at it, all the points come together. Pine forests, if you approach them in a very systematic way, can produce for you. And yes, obviously I'm approaching them in a systematic way. That doesn't mean that they're sort of going to behave systematically forever. But at least that gives you that groundwork, that starting block to start getting some success. Anyway, it's getting late. It's 20 seconds to 5, so I'm going to drag her out and see what I can get done. Good times are natural, guys. I hope you're all having a lot of success this winter.